Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we're going to work on cleaning up my Mame tray. You can see here all these little trees have had a great time growing in the summer sun. I've been feeding them well, and these trays really provide just a super stable environment that allows these tiny plants to thrive even in the summertime. I created this Mame tray in a video, which I will link in the show notes. So check that out if you want to make one of these for yourself. I really can't recommend them enough. But for now, let's take a look at what we've got here. These are all my tiny trees. We'll do a bit of a flyover, and you can see the growth has really just taken off. They're elongated. I'm sure many of them have escape roots, and they are just sucking up water and food, and they just look a picture of health, which is great, but I want to direct some of that growth and get them back in to being on their way to fabulous bonsai trees. So we'll take a little spin here, and you can check out some of these trees before we prune them. I think I'll put the tray on the side here and then take them out one by one, and we'll prune each one. So you get 12 for the price of one. I think there's 12 trees in here. And I'll talk about each one, and we'll prune it up and put it back in the tray, and then have another look at everything for the victory lap. But yeah, you can see it's quite healthy and certainly in need of pruning. You don't want to let these get too far. I found, especially with small trees, you really want to kind of constrain them. So the first tree here is one I call Little Blue. Just adorable. I love this tiny little blue pot. And you can see it's grown out pretty well. This tree had quite a rough, I'll just kind of thin it back here a bit, the stuff that's obviously too long. It had quite a rough, I guess, late winter, and I'll link the video in the show notes. You can check that out. It's actually it's a lovely little video that shows root pruning and repotting and everything. But this is always one of my favorite tiny little trees. I just really like the trunk. It's a cork bark, Frankie cork bark, and I'm just pruning it back nice and tight and give it a nice, sort of triangle shape. And then we will let it grow out some more. But this one was down to almost a cutting. I took quite a few roots off. It had suffered a little bit of root rot, but boy, it's really bounced back and looks great. I think my camera has kind of slid off here, so I'll fix that in a minute here when I take a break in the pruning. But yeah, I just want to get in here and sort of reduce it down and give it a nice tight shape. And it's just a lovely little tree. I think especially these little Mame trees in very tiny pots are just so charming and easy to work with, and this is a nice little specimen, I think. So I think that'll do for the pruning of this one. We'll have a little look at it here. I think it looks pretty good. I will let it grow probably for the rest of the summer, and then we will prune it, when we get towards the end of summer. This next little tree is also a cork bark. I can't remember which tree is the parent, but the interesting thing about this one is I made this little pot. Now, it's no fine work of art. I think this is the very first bonsai pot I ever made. It was at some sort of a corporate pottery class function. But I like it, If you kind of look at it, you can see my signature there on the bottom, and it's a great little pot. I think what I like most about it actually are the feet and how it's just crazy rectangles. So this one, I'm just going to shorten it up a bit. We actually obviously had that shoot out the top that was too far, and kind of take it back to its basic shape, and probably to just a couple sets of leaves, because I want to get more branching and have it be more bushy and just remain very small. Yeah, this tree, it's actually been in this pot for about a year now. Actually, it's kind of interesting. I sort of wonder what sort of roots it has. It's never, as far as I've known, tried to come out the bottom. So I might pull it out here and take a look and see what's going on there. But I mean, the tree's growing healthy, so there's really no need to do that. As long as they're growing well, I pretty much don't worry about what's going on with the roots. You may have noticed one of the key things I like to do in pruning these small trees is really getting the leaves out that are close to the interior of the trunk, because you know these stumpy little trunks are really the charming part of these, and so you really want to showcase and see those. So if it's too bushy, you really can't appreciate the trunk. So you can see now, I think this tree actually looks far larger than it did just mere moments ago because the trunk really stands out. It's probably over potted, but you know, I have kind of an affinity for this pot, and so I think I'm just going to keep it in here, and we'll just keep growing it and see how it goes. But yeah, you can see it's got some little corking on there, and you know, it's actually just kind of a charming little tree. This next little tree is one of my all-time favorite Mame. This is my little Portulacaria Afra variegated cascade. It's a cute little Japanese pot. You can see the roots really like to kind of come out those tiny little holes, so I have to keep an eye on this one. But it's gotten quite bushy, and so we're going to cut this back. And by the way, I have a link to my Mame. There's a Mame playlist on my channel, and I'll put a link to that in these show notes to make it easy for you to go back and you can look at the progress of all my Mame trees over time. But this one has grown quite well. It really likes the sun and the fertilizer. So yeah, it's getting a little long, so I'm just kind of tightening it up and reducing it back. And I kind of like how it's kind of going around the pot, but again, that's gotten to be a bit much. But I just love the beautiful green and white color here with this kind of brown, smoky looking pot. It's just really it's just really worked out nicely. So I think I need to thin the top out a bit here as well. And you know, these grow really slowly, so I typically only prune this guy twice a year, but that sounds like a reasonable amount for a bonsai. But for a Portulacaria, that's not a whole lot of pruning. Yeah, so, but this one is really cute, and I really like it. I'm trying to remember the last time I pruned this, and I'm having a hard time. So it may have been quite a while. I mean, you can see it's it always looks good, you know, but I think when you really get it down to sort of a minimal set of leaves, it looks better. See, this is looking better already. I'm kind of getting rid of that growth. It's kind of kind of growing on the sort of the negative void side of the tree, and so it really just kind of accentuates the rest of it. And yeah, I think that looks good, and I'll thin it out even more, and we will let it grow. Maybe I'll get a little cloud on the top here, and there's a cloud in this corner, and I think we can have one on the second corner and then one on the bottom. And yeah, I think this tiny tree, I mean, as minimal as it is, it really has a lot of promise, I think, for the future. But that's looking pretty good. I don't think I want to take off too much more. I'm just kind of giving it a last look here to see if there's anything that I don't like, and I think I will take that off, because I think that just looks a bit better, and you know, we'll get kind of a branch coming out of there. And with that one is a go. So this next tree, you can see it's got some escape roots there, and I'll just let that go. There's plenty of room there. I mean, if it were clogging the bottom, I would prune the roots. But you know, this one already has a nice triangle shape. It's sort of like, I think of it as like a mother-daughter tree. It's also a cork bark cutting, and you can see some of the charm there. So I just want to, you know, it's also got a nice triangle shape with the two trees, so I really want to just thin it out and you know, get rid of this stuff that's kind of cluttering up the view, so I can really see those two trees, and you know, kind of really, you know, have a glance at the tree, sort of give you the picture of, you know, there are two trees here, and there's kind of like a big one and then a small one beside it, and together they sort of form this triangle. So again, a lot of what I'm doing is getting rid of a lot of these leaves on the inside. I want to create some negative space between the two trees so that you can actually, see the silhouette of both of them. And of course, anything that's growing down or into the other tree, just kind of get rid of that. And, just remove leaves as well to create a little bit of space so that, I can really crisply see the trunks and the shapes of these two trees. This tree also is in a pot by David George. I think I have several of his pots. He sells a lot of these really tiny pots like this, and sometimes in a set, which is where I think I got this with two other two other pots, and just really nice work. I mean, look at the detail in this. I just love having these handmade pots that are kind of one of a kind to sort of match your trees that are one of a kind. And it's also nice to not only support artists and local artists, but you also, I think you get much better deals, right? And you kind of get some background on the pot. And I've never met David, but I will look forward to it if I can someday. So we're really doing a great job reducing this tree down to its essence, which is kind of what I like to do. And it's funny because I sort of feel like I say the same thing all the time, kind of reducing it down to one or two sets of leaves, and that's true, but you have to choose the right set, right? So I think this one looks pretty good. I'm going to clear off some of the debris here. I'm surprised we've actually taken quite a bit off of this. Sometimes it's good to take a little break in the action and clear the decks and just give it a second to settle, and then have another look at it, which we will do now. Yeah, so I think that helps, kind of clears the mind a little, and I come back on it now and I think, yeah, it's still got a fair amount of clutter and leaves I don't need. And so, you can immediately see that. You can see I've really opened up the top there, and the point of really reducing it back hard like this is I'm going to let it grow a lot now, and so if I hadn't done this, it would just be a mass and ball of foliage. So let's have a look at it. I still think it's a little too complicated, but it's actually looking nicer. Maybe I'll take a few of these out. It sort of has a almost like a ballerina look to it. That thought just popped in my head as I was kind of spinning it around. And sometimes it takes a little while just to look at it and develop the courage to cut something you should take off. But I think particularly from the front, this one actually looks quite nice now. So this next tree is one of my Frank Yee cuttings I did not too long ago. You can check my playlist or videos and see that. And boy, you can see when I did water propagation with this, and then when you put them in soil, they really take off. And you can see this one has developed it into a nice bush shape. And again, you might say, well, it looks good like it is. Why prune it at all? But if I didn't do this, it would very quickly become quite large and unwieldy. And I really want to keep this as a very small, charming mame. So it had to be cut back. So everywhere I cut it, I'll get two new branches. And, that will really allow me to have a lot more choice and a lot more branching, sort of lower down and really choose the shape I want for this. So I'm really just kind of increasing ramification. And, when you look at this tree in a year, it'll look much different than it does now. And especially with these small trees, if you want to keep them small, I found you do have to prune them often, right? And who knows, I can always change my mind. If this doesn't develop in the way I want, I can let it grow out and pot it up and have a larger tree. But for now, I think it has a lot of potential as a mame. And I think this one is just about done. We'll take a quick spin, have a look at it, and move on to the next tree. So this next guy is again one of my recent water propagation put into a pot, and it's taken off. It's got a really long whip on it going there. I really like this purple pot. And believe it or not, this started as just 2 trees. It was sort of like, again, like a mother-daughter tree, and it has just taken off. You can barely see that now. So I'll start by just taking that long whip right back. And then the rest of it is just kind of looking at, if I want to restore it back more to its original shape, which I actually liked, or go in a different direction. So to make that decision, I'll just kind of remove, this is growing into the tree beside it that has to come off, and there's some growth just going in a direction that is going to clutter things up and not be useful. So I'll get rid of that, and it pretty much looks like I'm taking it back to more of a shape that's quite reminiscent of how it looked before. I'll just clean up the bases here because I'm never going to use anything quite that low, and kind of thin out some of the foliage here. This tree's quite healthy. It'll bust out in all kinds of new growth fairly quickly once we put it back in the growing tray. It's funny, like sometimes when I'm doing this formative pruning, it reminds me of something. I'm a professional software engineer by training, and I did some AI early on, although I have been out of it for decades now. But there was this thing called a fitness function, which is honestly kind of a lot of the primary, a lot of the AI that's been useful is basically the same thing. And basically how that works is you define this function that can determine if things have gotten better or worse, and if they've gotten better, then the computer keeps working in that direction. If they've gotten worse, it kind of turns around. So a computer can learn how to play video games and all kinds of things this way. And I sort of think of that sometimes when we're doing pruning, because the tree is just sort of randomly growing and we're constantly removing. We're providing a fitness function where we tell it, we give it positive feedback by not pruning and negative feedback by pruning when it goes in a direction we don't want, which is what I'm doing here. And I think you can see we've really reduced this down now to just a charming little shape. And I think I'm going to go just all in and really take it back and get some branching low down and see how we like that. In fact, I can remove some of this wire. Very charming, I think. So I think that one's done. We really can't do much more. And so I'll clear off and get the next tree. So this next tree is one of my favorite little mames. This is a Mane. And boy, you can see what constraining the roots really does for of course it's overgrown and horribly needs pruning, which we will attend to here shortly. But you really get fantastic leaf size reduction. Just look at all the leaves on this thing, So I'm just going to start by just cutting back some of the growth that's just gone a bit too far. And I think it's kind of a good time to bring up a subject. I see a lot of people like look at all the leaves on this. I don't know. Does it have 100 leaves? Maybe, probably at least that, maybe more. And all of this contributes to, pulling resources up through the trunk, which makes it thicker, like all the way down from where the leaves are all the way back. And this is how I prefer to build bulk on jade trees, right? Because it's not a function of how big the branch is. It's really a function of how many leaves are out there doing their thing and causing growth, right? And so I would much rather have a tree with a lot of ramification that I'm eventually going to cut off, even forming a sort of a sacrifice tree out on a branch that can instantly become a new tree, rather than letting a long whip just go. And something related to this, honestly, is sort of this, exponential growth, right? Where every time I cut it, I'll get 2 new branches. And every time I cut those, I get 2 more. And I cut those and I get 2 more. And all that creates leaves, which thickens up the trunk. So I contend that this is really the way to put on a lot of growth, right? Rather than letting one whip go out, growing 2 leaves at a time, I create a sacrifice tree out on a branch where I'm getting exponential growth on the leaves, which will really spike growth. So give it a try and let me know what you think. But I found that, just look at this tree. It's just a mass of leaves in an extremely tiny space. So as I've been pontificating on various things here, I'm slowly kind of thinning this out. And yeah, there's just a lot of leaves here, and I'm sort of getting rid of some of the larger ones in favor of the smaller ones. I'll do some branch pruning as well here. But yeah, a quick look at the carnage area. You can see we've taken a fair amount off already, and we will just continue simplifying. I keep looking at this. I'm going to continue reducing this tight stuff in. It helps to spin the tree around, look at it from the top, from the bottom. But you can see I've got this long branch out the back. And we'll take a look at that closer in a moment. I'm just trying to get some of these leaves that are in super close to the trunk out of there so I can actually see some of the trunk. And even if you can't see the trunk, you can see the brown back there. But this large branch here near that one I just cut, you know, the more you kind of work it down, like, it really just looks out of place. And so I think we're going to have to do something about that. But wow, what a transformation so far. And sometimes you can just cover it up with my thumb and see what you think. And if you look at it from this angle, boy, if I reduce that down, I think we're really cooking with gas. So let's do that. So off it goes, and wow, what a fabulous choice. I mean, that just looks so much better, you know. I mean, you can really see kind of the structure and the shape of this tree now, and I left a stub there, so we might get some tiny branches coming out this way, which I think would be good. So I'll do a few more nips and tucks here and there, but that big branch was really the coup de grace, as it were, that really kind of I think made all the difference in this tree. But I do want to keep thinning it out a bit and just really get it down to a super tiny leaves. What a just fabulous look this thing has. I always like it when you're kind of going along. I mean, if you just rewind this, it sort of seemed hopeless when we started out. And what a difference, you know, like, I really think that, you know, pruning, and let's bring it in, and, you know, it helps to sort of take a look at the top and look at it from different angles. It really does. But, you know, by reducing it down, just look at this trunk, you know, I mean, we really make the tree look so much bigger by reducing the foliage. I mean, this really looks like an old tree on a plain somewhere. I love it. Looks good even from the top. I mean, look at that super small foliage. So pick out some of the debris here. You can see it's even got some surface roots there, which is always nice. And yeah, I'm really happy with this one. This started out as a much larger tree, and I finally decided, you know what, I like how it goes to the side, and we're just going to go with that. So we'll give it a center it and give it a little spin here, because I think this one is maybe the star of the day. I don't know. Leave me some comments and let me know which tree do you think you like best. But I think this one looks pretty good. So next up here we have another one of my recent propagation to soils, and boy, you can see this guy has a lot of roots that have grown out the bottom. It's quite a healthy boy here. This thing is just grown like a weed. You know, again, I think I'll just let that go because there's no sort of risk of clogging at this point. So I'll just kind of cut this tree back kind of hard and then let it grow again. And I'm not really sure what shape we want to go with this one. I think I've also got to think about doing some more propagation with some of these, since most of these are cork barks. So as I look at this one, I'm just trying to figure out, okay, what's the basic shape I want to go with these? Because it sort of looks, it's almost like a triple trunk, right? So my first inclination is to go with that and just kind of reduce a lot of this stuff back that isn't in line with, you know, something that's a triple trunk. And again, you know, you kind of want to encourage the tree to grow up and out towards the outside, not towards the inside. And so, you know, it's pretty easy to figure out, well, what should I cut away that's kind of not, you know, in keeping with that. And you can see we've kind of got a triangle shape going here already. You know, I think I'll reduce it down to one trunk on those side trees and really kind of simplify it down, and basically take a bit of the top off here and get more branching in that area, which I think will also look good. And you know, I think that is your basic triangle right there, and we will we'll go with that with this tree. Let me just clean up a little bit here, and we'll have a quick look at this one. and put it back in the tray. I think it'll grow like crazy with those roots already ready to go there. So here's another tree. Look at those roots. It's had a bit of a wild summer so far, and look at the growth on this one. It has really taken off. Now this are 3 trees in a single pot here. And so, you know, I guess I'm kind of growing them as a mini forest, but I think we'll just kind of cut them way back and, you know, let them branch out and, you know, see what comes out of it later in the fall. But yeah, you can see lots of healthy growth in this thing, and it really needed to be cut back and start getting some branches that we can choose from. So one of the main things I'm doing is, you know, removing growth that is going straight into the trees beside it, because I really want them to kind of come up and out and grow kind of away from each other and form a nice little forest. So I guess my hand's in the way, but I'm sort of hacking back a lot of that there at the moment. And, you know, it's sort of as simple as that. You really just kind of keep cutting it and growing it out and removing the stuff that clashes with the other trees. I'll take this off too. And maybe take that, then the top out, so it'll sort of you know, change direction there, get a little more movement in the trunk as this little tree grows out. Yeah, so we've kind of taken this back. You know, it does look like a little forest again, which is quite charming. And so I think the pruning's just about done. I may do a few more nips and tucks here, but I think this one is almost ready to just let it grow out and go through this whole process again in another, I don't know, say month or so. So just clean out the debris, and this one is good to go. This next tree is a lovely little corker in a green pot. I actually made this hot pot by drilling a hole in a sake cup, and I have a video for that. If you want to check my list, you can see how that's done. It's a lot of fun. But it's grown quite well. You know, it's taken well to soil, and I just want to kind of neaten it up a bit, get it back down to size, and get some branching to sort of regrow the top for this tree. So I'm just taking a look and seeing what I want to cut. I've kind of got some stuff going to the inside I want to take out. You know, I sort of prefer to keep the weaker growth. Just seems to work out better that way. So I've got that side kind of pruned up, and look at the other side here. Really want to take it down to just really the trunk and sort of regrow some of this to get some finer growth. You know, so don't be afraid to remove leaves and whatever you don't like. It'll grow back quite quickly. So I took that off to really have a single apex here in the front, and I'm thinking about cutting that one shorter, but we'll let it go for now and see what kind of branching we get, whether it's going to be out the top or closer to the existing top of the tree. And I think that's about it for this one. And so we'll clean it up and put this guy back in the tray. I think I'll take a little bit of this wire off, actually. It's kind of wrapped around and just kind of bothering me and not really needed. I think probably could take it completely off at this point, but we'll leave it on a little longer and maybe take a few more leaves off. Why not? Yeah, I think we're really getting down to the basics, and I am going to take that top off and just kind of tighten this thing right in. And once again, I think that is about as low as we can go. And look at that cute little tree in this. It's sort of like a charming little pot. I really like the crackle green on it, and you know, I can't wait for the tree to develop, and I think they'll make a nice pair. So the next tree here is a little aria, Portulacaria Afra, and I like this little tree. I like the little pot. You know, it's got kind of a, you know, I love how it's sort of, the new growth is yellow and then it slowly turns green. And, you know, this tree, it looks like a little orchard tree to me, and it always grows really well. and I cut it back. So I've been developing it for a while now. And so we'll just cut it back today and try to leave it in a nice, pleasing, sort of minimal shape. But, you know, we're kind of getting a little bit of a canopy on it nowadays. It tends to grow some low growth here, which I'm kind of cutting off. And you can see, you get a better look at the bark here when I finish. But it's got a nice little looking trunk on it, and I just want to get the rest of the tree in scale with that. You know, like all my arias, it grows super thick, dense, tight foliage. So it's always a bit of a chore to come in here and really kind of thin it out, you know, so you can see, get a little light in there. And I typically just remove the downward leaves and leaves in close to the trunk to try to create a little bit of space in there, you know, and also, you know, kind of leaves growing towards the middle of the trunk. Kind of cut those out, you know, so you get a better flow, and it just makes for a much more convincing looking tiny tree. But it is tough to get in here because it's hard to even see, you know, where these things are connecting, and you frequently accidentally cut off the wrong thing. But if you're just patient and have some super fine, sharp scissors and remain calm and just keep going, and before you know it, you've got it nicely pruned. So I'm just trying to get some of this stuff that's in there really close out. Yeah, so I tell you, I really love these Mame trays because I can, like, as I said, I think there are 12 trees in there. I can easily carry them over, work on them, and it's almost too much, you know, because 12 trees is a lot to work with. But you don't have to do them all at once, although I chose to do that for this video. But it really makes it nice to kind of, I'm just going to pick this up and turn it a little bit. It's a nice thing about these small trees. You can really whip them around and look at it from all angles just by picking up in your hand. But yeah, the Mame tray really makes it convenient to work on your trees and move them around, and you know, it makes the whole set just super portable. So I'm just neatening up some of this thick stuff on the outside and stuff that's growing down. And you know, this tree already had a pleasing overall shape, you know, and so I just want to tighten that up and you know, make it so I can see the trunk and appreciate its wonderful charms. And so I think I'll take the top down a little. Like, we're finally getting to the point where I can actually see the beauty of the tree now, so I sort of want to do a little pruning to accentuate that so that I can sort of see some of the branches and some of the layers and some of the movement of the trunk and the branches. And you know, for me, this is what it's all about with these tiny trees, is really, you know, because you don't have as complicated a structure, so you really have to sort of show off what you do have. And I find that you know, if you do that, they really look quite good. And I think we've improved this one tremendously, and now you can really see the little trunk there. You know, I mean, it's got segments in it, but it, you know, I just really like how it looks, and hopefully it will develop bark at some point here. So let's clear this out. And then give a little bit of a victory spin. I just really like this little tree, and I think the pot really works for it, works with it. And yeah, it's just a charming little tree. I'll tell you, these things just make me smile. It's just so rewarding to work on these very small trees. So here we go. Last but not least, this is another Portulacaria aria. It's also a cutting from my golden aria, actually, as was the last tree. And you can see it, you know, it likes to grow. It's in an adorable little black square pot. It's a Japanese pot. Same one as the that brown kind of smoky pot that I showed earlier with my Portulacaria variegated in. And it's just beautiful. Like, I really like this tiny pot. And of course, you know, this tree it may even be a bit more overgrown. So I'm just gonna start by just kind of chopping back and almost profile pruning it, you know, take out anything that's too long or hanging down, or just out of shape. And then, once I get that done, then I can go in and do some more finer, detailed pruning. I sort of also consider this, I think I called the last tree sort of an orchard tree, and that's pretty much how I see this one as well, like a tree that you'd sort of see, I don't know, out beside a barn, maybe an old apple tree that, the kids kind of eat apples off every summer, something like that. But let me thin it out, and we can get it back to its nature here, and see what we're working with. Much like the last tree, and it's as common with these RAs, which I mentioned there, you really, if you don't like spending time thinning out really dense, thick growth, then I'm going to say the RA is probably not for you, because they really like to grow in super, super thick, lots of back budding and lots of leaves kind of growing right in the crotch of branches, and you cut them and they just keep coming back. But, I kind of like that because it gives you lots of options, and boy, they really come in miniature, right? You can really get these quite small. So, yeah, I think that, it's well worth it. I've definitely got some other Portulacarias that are, they grow much more quickly, but not nearly as compactly as this. And I really like this variety, but it does require a significant effort on pruning, because you just get these kind of microscopic, tightly packed leaves. So I'm thinning them out, and my goal here really is to kind of get it down to a point where, I want to see, each branch, and where it comes off the trunk, and I want to see some brown in there, and really have a look at the tree, because it'll quickly keep growing, and after, I don't know, a month, it'll, you won't be able to see that as much anymore. But it's always good to kind of get back to that when you do your sort of heavy pruning on the tree, because otherwise it'll just get away from you. So you sort of have to do that. So I'm just kind of removing leaves that I'm quite sure I don't need, anything going the wrong direction, or up or down, or to the inside, or stuff that's just blocking what I consider to be a good view. And it does take some time, and you just keep at it, and take a breath here and there. I was kind of questioning that last branch I took off there that went from the main trunk over to the smaller trunk on the left, and I think it's a good call to remove it. I mean, sometimes on these smaller trees, you can have something like that, because it's so small, it just kind of gives you the picture of the overall tree, and you don't really need that. But I think I'm going to get a lot of natural branching that's going to come over in a much more convincing way. So I'm really just going to take this back to its essence, and I think we're getting close to that. And then we will let it grow out some more, of course. So we're kind of wrapping this tree up. I'm just having another look at it, but I think we'll clear up and give it a spin. You can sort of have a look at it, and then I will put this one back in the tray, and we will bring the whole tray back for a victory lap, where we can see the efforts of all our hard work. And I will also leave us with some parting thoughts. I just missed a few leaves here. So here we go. The Mame tray is all pruned up. Pat yourself on the back if you made it through our pruning marathon of 12 trees. In fact, if you feel like it, go into the comments and say I'm a marathoner, because that is a lot of pruning. But boy, it looks great. And this thing is set up now to grow for the rest of the season. And I'll take us in for a bit of a close-up here while I also talk about the parting thought. And I was asked the other day, well, why do you do bonsai? And I think the person that asked me thought, because it's the results, right? Because I want these trees that look a certain way. Let's go in for a close-up here while I'm talking about this. And for me, it's that's not it at all. It's about the process. In fact, it's about everything that led up to that. Like when I'm pruning a tree, you know, time just seems to float away, and I just, you know, it's like a mini vacation. It's such a meditative state, and I get so much out of it, like caring for these trees and working with them. That for me, that's the reward. It's not the end result of the tree, you know. That's almost a side effect of really just the enjoyment I get of doing this on a day-to-day basis, and the dedication and growing it, you know. So you know, it's interesting, like, why do you do bonsai? You know, it's an important thing to think about, and a good question to ask yourself. Do a bit of a flyover here. You can see them from the top. Really a lot of pruning today, for sure. And you know, I think I'm going to go have a cold drink after all this, because that was a fair amount to take on. You can see here is all the stuff we cut off of all these various varieties of Portulacaria Afras. And yeah, there's a lot there for sure. But I'm pretty much done now for at least another month or so. And I want to thank you for watching this video and spending time with me. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.